Hi everyone, welcome back to the channel. So by the title, today's video is a much rather different type of video that I usually tend to film on my channel, but it's going to be for a very good cause. The reason why I'm doing this video today is just to get it out there, spread awareness, use my platform to get across to as many women as possible and young girls, because something like this should be talked about so much more, and more information should be provided, especially for the younger generation, the ones that are under 25. So before we get right in, I just want to let you all know that I'm going to be speaking on behalf of my own self and my experiences when I had my first ever smear test done. And just a disclaimer, I was under the age of 25 when I went for my first smear, so I'm going to be talking a little bit about my experience, and I'm going to be leaving some helpful information as well for you all to have a little browse through. You can check out the website where there's going to be further info you'll see once I get in talking. So without further ado, like the video, subscribe if you're new and only joining me now, and let's get right on in. So it is clearly Cervical Cancer Awareness Week. They have like this little awareness thingy going on for cervical cancer every so often, which I think is so good, especially when it's plastered all over the internet. Cervical cancer is so common in so many women, unfortunately, and there's ways to prevent it. There is ways to prevent it, and that's what I'm going to be using my platform for today, to give you the information you need that you probably don't even have access to at the minute. And I know we're going through such a terrible time, like with COVID, like everywhere is literally closed, but the only place that really isn't closed, well, there is a few, but the most important place, I guess, is your GP. So your GP practice is open, and I just want you to take that in mind when I do get in talking. So enough jabbing on, I'm going to talk about my own experience. So I had a smear test done when I turned 23. I was nearly 24 at the time. And you're going to probably wonder, Nikki, like, why did you have a smear test done? You know, you have to be 25 in Ireland to have a smear test done. Clearly I went private, and this is why I'm filming today's video, to get the awareness spread amongst the whole of the internet, like amongst you all, to have it drilled into your head. You don't have to be 25 to have it done. Like, you basically don't, because if you're under the age of 25, you can still go private. You have the option to go private. I just don't think enough is spoke about it. So I went at the age of 23, nearly 24, and during that time there was a lot of scandal to do with the smear tests, like results coming back like wrong for so many women, which is the case. Unfortunately, so many women are still battling losing their lives, like trying to stay alive for their families and their own selves, and others unfortunately have passed away, which is so heartbreaking due to this, like due to results being done wrong in laboratories. Like, that is just such a shame, you know what I mean? That is something that I don't think this generation will ever get over. Like, still to this day we're hearing so many beautiful women coming on talking on TV, on their social media accounts, and getting by day, fighting cancer off, all because of results being handled the wrong way, which is such a complete and utter shame. Well, enough about that. Getting back, I decided to book in for my smear test because of this, and at the time I was a bit skeptical. I was like, I have to be 25, but I actually heard, somehow back then I heard, I'm now 24 by the way, I'm 25 in April, I heard that you could go private but you had to pay, and at the time I think it was like over €100 you had to pay, and I was like, I do not care about money at this stage, my life is more important, I'm going to go private. So I rang my GP, and I remember at the time when I rang in, the receptionist, now there is a lot of like obstacles that do stand in the way when you decide to go private. Like, there will be like a few barriers, they wonder why you want to go private and so on. And obviously at the time I had to explain to a receptionist why I wanted to go private. And I remember I actually visited my GP and I had a little chat, because after I had my daughter, this is like a personal topic, but I'm going to share it with you guys because it's probably something you have to look out for as well. So after I had my daughter, I felt really different down there. I don't know what it was. I just felt like anytime I would stand up for like a long period of time, I'd get like a weakness down below around my cervix, and it was something that really baffled me. I was like, what is going on with me? Like, I'm not used to feeling this way. It's something to be looked into. So that's what I done. I booked my GP and I talked to my doctor. I said, look, blah blah blah, and he said that when a woman has a child, you know, you need to exercise and so on. So that was the reason for that, which is totally understandable now. You're meant to exercise for your cervix go back into place and everything after you have a child. So mine was suffering, I guess, but I didn't stop there. I still wanted to go private. So I talked to the GP and he said that he wouldn't really recommend for, well, it was up to me, it was my decision, but he wouldn't really recommend for young girls to go private. Basically, okay, I want to get this across right because I want to think straight of what was said that day. Basically, it would worry a lot of younger girls if the results come back abnormal, because a lot of results do come back abnormal. And I remember thinking at the time, well, if my results do come back abnormal, God forbid, like, wouldn't it be a good thing then of me going and having myself checked? You know what I mean? So to me, it just, I was like, I'm doing my own thing. I'm getting the go ahead now at my doctor. He's saying it's my decision and I'm going to go and have it done. So I went into the nurse, I booked my appointment with her, and she said, come up another day, blah, blah, blah. And I remember I booked the appointment and I was actually bleeding. So I rang in a couple, like it was a week or two later, could have been a little longer. And I was saying like, I'm bleeding because, you know, I had my period or something that Pacific morning when I was due to go to the doctors to have it done. I just want to mention, a nurse does it, not your doctor. So a nurse will do it. A woman done mine, by the way. So I had to cancel because they wouldn't do it. If you're bleeding, they won't do it. They won't go ahead with checking down below. So I cancelled it and I rescheduled it for a couple of days later, and that's what I done. So going in now, talking about my experience. So I went up, I had a little chat with the nurse, and I remember her being so helpful, and she was so nice about it. Like, she was making me at ease, saying, like, mentioning, oh, it's like, it doesn't hurt at all, making my mind much rather at ease, which I needed because I was nervous. You would hear a lot of backstories on cervical checks. So I told her I had a child and everything. We had a little chat. So she said, lie down on the bed, blah blah blah, and obviously they get their little clamp or whatever it is. I did not look, I really do know, I don't even know what they use, but I'm full sure it's like a clamp thingy. So obviously, you know, you're lying on a bed, your two legs are up like this, and I don't want to go too much into detail, but you know the drill, guys, when you're getting checked down below or whatever. And at this stage, like, I was nervous, but I was prepared to have it done because I've had a child as well, like childbirth, with natural birth, by the way. So I was kind of like, okay, this is for my own good now. So she had a little clamp, took a little sample. I believe they do a little swab thingy. So they take out, they go up through the cervix, take out like a cell or something, and that's how it gets tested. So it gets sent off to the laboratory. And I just want to mention that having a smear test done private for me only cost me €40, I do believe, 40 to 60. Reason being, before we went ahead with the little procedure, that did not hurt at all, at all, at all. It does not hurt, guys. It lasts a second. It's over within 60 seconds, believe me when I say it. And it was the best decision that I've ever made in my life. Getting back, so she told me when I leave the room that I have to pay whoever, like the cervical check team, and she provided me with the number. They do mention when you go up to have your smear test done that day that you need to have money in your account, so you need to have whatever the balance is that's needed. I do know if you are to have a smear test done and you don't have the HPV vaccine, getting back, I forgot to mention, I had the HPV vaccine. So before she done the little procedure, she mentioned it to me, have you have it done? I was like, yes, I had it done in school, which is amazing, like, for so many girls, because that prevents the cause of cancer, like, stirring down there. So I had it done, which I'm one of the lucky ones. I'm so grateful for. And if you have the opportunity to have it done in your school as well, then go ahead with it. It's a really good, like, decision to make, definitely for me anyways. So obviously that prevents cancer. I went ahead with it, blah blah blah, back then, and now look where it got me. Like, hands down the best decision ever. So I told her I had the HPV vaccine, and she looked into it for me, and she could tell that I did have it, just to be on the safe side. And she said, look, it's only going to cost you about 40 to 60 euro, either of one of the two, because you've already had the HPV vaccine, so you're prevented in some way. So I was like, grand, that's grand, even though I had the full balance in my account. So just to mention, it will be cheaper if you had the vaccine. So I had the procedure done. Again, it only lasted a second. It takes about 10 days, 2 weeks to come back, your results. You get sent off to the laboratory, and yeah, my results did come back, and I'm feeling so blessed. Like, I remember that whole, like, nearly 2 weeks I was paranoid out my head. I was like, what if my results come back abnormal? But then I was thinking, if they do, like, it's going to be like, okay, it's going to be grand, everything is cotton time, there's help out there for that, you know, there's treatments and so on. But I would advise any using this platform today, like, I've never touched on this topic before, but it is Cervical Cancer Awareness Month. I now will so, and I'm so happy to get it out there, because I'm older, I'm wiser, and it's a decision that I made like 2 or 3 years ago. And yes, I am back next year. So the nurse did say to me, Nicole, just because you had this done today at this age, at the age 23, I still want you to return when you're 25. So I'm 25 in April, and you bet I will be marching up to that doctor to have my second smear test done. Like, you need to look after yourself, you need to have it done, guys. If you're a female, if you're young, like if you're sexually active, in my opinion, like, you should have a smear test done. If you are the age of roughly 17 to 18 onwards, I would say, and you've had a baby as well, you're sexually active, go and have a smear test done. It doesn't like cost a whole lot. It's worth going private. I don't know what's wrong with our world. Like, I don't know why it wasn't lowered, especially with the whole scandal of women dying and so on, and how popular cervical cancer is, especially nowadays. Like, it triggers so many families, and it's just heartbreaking. I recommend for you, if you're watching this video and you are sexually active, like I said, or you had a baby, book in with your GP. The coronavirus is going on, yeah, but cervical cancer is more important. Like, your life is more important than the coronavirus. It really is. Like, people, yeah, the coronavirus is bad, 100%, but you have to think, like, cancer is obviously a worse disease than any coronavirus. And when you have the opportunity to have it done, especially in a time like this. Another thing that I want to get out there, it's your body, and you can do as you please. You do what's best. I'm going to be touching on a few topics in a minute. Why you should book in if you have any of the, like, symptoms going on in your body. In a minute, I'm going to just share some things on my phone that I want to touch on to get out as well, which is so important. But always trust your body, like, go with the flow, have yourself seen. And I just want to say that your GP at the minute, even though COVID-19 has hit us all very hard at the minute, your GP is still going to be doing cervical checks. And not only that, if they aren't, there could be a possibility wherever you are that they aren't, due to being really busy at the minute with other, like, things going on in their practices. You can go to another GP around your area. So where I live, there's about 4 GPs, literally about 4, yeah. So you can go and visit another GP. You're still going to be, like, registered to have it done. So that's all I have to say on that, guys. Again, if you're the age of 17, even if you're 16, I don't really know. If you're sexually active, go ahead with it. It doesn't matter. It shouldn't have an age, like, on it. It's 25, as they say, to have it done for free. Like, F for free. Go and have it done now. I'm going to have mine done again when I'm 25. And luckily, it is for free for me. But I paid to have it done. And I know nowadays there is plenty of other girls like that have, like, paid as well. So I just screenshotted a few little bits on my phone here. So I'm on the cervical check website. That's probably not even focusing right there. And I've already seen that you can actually check when your next smear test is done by typing up into Google cervical check, and it says on it find out when your next cervical screen test is due, enter your details. So all you have to do is enter your PPS number and your date of birth. Easy access, really good, like really helpful as well. So the symptoms that you're going to be looking out for, if you're having any of the below the topics I'm going to touch on, then I would 100% advise for you to go to your GP, like ring immediately and tell them your symptoms and everything. So cervical cancer symptoms and signs to look out for, guys. So number 1 is blood spots or light bleeding between or following periods. Obviously you are entitled to have your period and bleed and everything, but if you are someone that bleeds regularly, like, and you're just fed up of it and the pill isn't regulating, or whatever, you've already tried to regulate your bleeding, then have a smear test done. Look, it's not going to hurt, it's only going to take a second, it's going to be worth it in the long run. So yeah, if you're bleeding a lot, then have it done. So menstrual bleeding that is longer and heavier than usual, again, if it's heavier, if there's a difference with the bleeding, advise to have it done. And then if you're having sexual intercourse with your partner and you're bleeding a lot afterwards, then, like, if it's douching or a pelvic, if it's douching or whatever, have a pelvic examination done. So I'd advise for you to have, you know, down there looked at, have a smear test done. Sorry, I got a little bit tangled, like confused there, because it's the way it's, like, I'm reading it out the way it's looking on screen. So if you have increased vaginal discharge, discharge is a huge one. That's probably the most common factor how women actually find out they have cervical cancer, by their discharge. So your discharge is like what comes out of your body and everything. You're going to know the changes that occurs down there when, you know, when that changes. It's worth having it looked at and mention it to your doctor as well, and go for a smear test if it's recommended. So pain during sexual intercourse, again, same thing, just touched on that. Bleeding, so yeah, the first one was bleeding during sexual intercourse, and then this one is pain during it. So if you're having pain as well, it's worth having a smear test done. And then also if you're like an older woman, bleeding after the menopause. So if you go through the menopause and you start bleeding and showing signs of any bleeding, spotting, you're also recommended to go and have a smear test done. So also the last one then is unexplained persistent pelvic or back pain. Back pain is actually a common one as well for cervical cancer. If you're suffering with like your back constantly, you're advised to have a smear test done, like they say, if you're the age. But again, don't go by the age. You have your smear test done again when you're 25, but if you're under, go as well and book in private. And that's everything really that I have to touch on, guys. That's all I wanted to get out. Again, I wanted to use my platform to talk a little bit about my experience. Again, hands down, the best decision that I've ever made. My results came back clear. I was even nervous about having abnormal cells, but if you do have a smear done and your results come back abnormal, nothing to be worried about. Like you're going to be well looked after, and there's going to be like help out there to sort that out right for you. So I hope you all enjoyed this video. Again, it's an off topic on my channel, but if you want me to talk more about like topics like this, a bit out of the extraordinary, just to help y'all, and especially like when there's awareness getting spread, then let me know. I'd be happy to talk a little bit about it, whatever you want. And if you have any questions about the smear that I didn't get to cover in today's video, do comment in the down bar and subscribe and like the video if you got to the end and you enjoyed it. Bye.